Can you ever imagine, as a student, asking to go to the bathroom, and your teacher says no, but it's really emergency? I mean, your bladder's filled up with urine, and you can't hold it in, and all of a sudden, there's urine all over you, and then your teacher's all like ignoring it, and man, so you go, "Oh, little Timmy, I'm sorry. I didn't realize that you needed to go to the bathroom. Here. I'll take you to the nurse, and we'll get you changed here." But then it was too late. It's the thing that no parent wants to hear. In this story you're about to see, a student wets himself because a teacher said no, you cannot go to the bathroom, when he had actually a lot of time to go to the bathroom. There are all sides to every story here, even from the school district. Here's Gina Lazara.
We only have 4 minutes to go to the bathroom, so I don't really have enough time because we're always in a rush.
Those 4 minutes 11-year-old Eric Orozco is talking about are the 4 minutes the students get for passing time between periods. It's suggested they use the bathroom during that time too.
They said you could do it in your passing time, but your passing time's only 4 minutes, and you still have to walk to your class.
Eric sat back down in his seat Friday afternoon after he was told no. That's when the accident happened. So once again, he asked permission to leave the room to get himself cleaned up.
She didn't realize he had peed his pants and told him no again. You can't use the bathroom.
Finally, Eric made himself clear.
She kind of felt bad about me.
He was sent to the dean's office and then to the health office.
He had to walk through the center of his classroom to tell the teacher he had an accident.
Once Eric got to the nurse's office, he waited for his mom to come get him.
When she arrived at the school, she found him completely soiled, uncovered, no curtain, no privacy. Our son was completely soiled in his own pee.
Eric's parents are so disturbed by what happened to their son. They're sharing their story because they don't want it happening to other students.
I wish I was there. I would have peed my pants and joined him.
Students we spoke with today actually told us this sort of thing happens a lot, where they're told they can't go to the bathroom. CCSD confirmed Eric's incident with us. They also told us that they're working on educating their teachers about letting the students go to the bathroom anytime that they ask. Gina Lazar, 13 Action News.
And advice for the teachers: if your child has to go to the bathroom, let them go to the bathroom. If it's an emergency, let them go. If they pee their pants, it's your fault for not letting the child go to the bathroom instead of pee their pants. If it's an emergency, it's an emergency. So therefore, what you need to understand is, oh my God, little Timmy soiled himself. It happens. Oh my God, he peed himself? Timmy, go to the nurse. Go get changed. We'll figure something out. Something no parent wants to understand. But it does happen where parents are outraged over something that happened. In Las Vegas, parents were living over restroom rules. Now, no school has a policy saying that children cannot go to the bathroom. Take a look at this clip. And I can assure you, if it ever happened, because a lot of times kids need to go to the bathroom, but experts just weigh in saying that's not the case here because you're just holding it in and something worse can happen. Take a look at this.
New at 11, parents in the East Valley are outraged after a group of first-grade teachers asked their children to avoid the restroom.
Yeah, that letter was sent home with students at C.C. Rono Elementary School, encouraging kids to hold it so they don't waste valuable learning time. Our Sasha Loftus has the latest from parents, school leaders, and a local doctor.
I was shocked. I thought, is this for real?
Denise Holland is making her message explicitly clear.
If they have to go to the bathroom, let them go to the bathroom.
No one should curb her stepson's bathroom breaks.
It's preposterous. You think it's a joke.
She says his first grade teacher sent this note home with students at C.C. Rono Elementary School last week. It asks parents to encourage bladder endurance, so kids only have to use the restroom once or twice in a school day.
For children, it's normal for them to go up to 10 to 12 times a day.
Pediatric urologist Dr. Jessica T. Casey tells me waiting too long can cause infections, bedwetting, and even long-term kidney damage. And this proves especially important for younger children as they learn to regulate their bodies.
It's really that age that they're really learning to understand how to control their bladder and how to control what they need to do. And so that time it's really important that we have them pee at least every 2 to 3 hours.
And this is why Holland says it's every parent's responsibility to recognize these dangers.
We can't be there in the classroom with them. So at least when we hear of stuff like this going on, I think it's important that we go to the school right away and let them know.
As she vows to always step in and speak out for anyone who needs an advocate.
It's so important to stand up for the kids because they don't really have a voice.
Sasha Loftus, 8 News Now.
We reached out to CCSD about that letter that was sent home with those elementary school students. They gave us a letter from the school's principal. Now it reads in part, I want to reassure parents the school has never had a policy restricting bathroom breaks for students. I've talked to those involved and taken steps to make sure any future mass communication will be run through the administration. A lot of comments, though, on social media tonight. Laura says teachers at my kids' school don't let them take bathroom breaks. I tell my kids if they need to go, then walk out and go. From Tara, I tell my kids to walk out if the teacher denies them a bathroom break. I'll deal with it later. And we even had a teacher weigh in saying it's a hot topic with me as well, and in my class, the students will be able to go when they ask.
It's an issue that's still probably going on. So my advice to teachers: if your student needs to go to the bathroom, let them go to the bathroom. If it's an emergency, it's an emergency. Don't tell them no. They peed their pants, then you have to deal with it right away. Imagine you as a student are late to school because of a bus that runs an hour late. Tardy buses when we return. Stay with us. Imagine as a student you're waiting the bus stop for 1 hour. And then imagine as a parent, you tell your child where's the bus. You say it'll be here. Then about an hour later, you call in and you're saying you're gonna be late because I gotta make sure my child gets on the bus. Then you're an hour late because the bus driver either had an issue, out partying or out doing something else and not doing whatever they need to do. Because if you're a bus driver, you need to understand you need to get your kids to school on time. That's the whole purpose. In this story right here, a late bus causes one child, not 2, not 4, not 5, one child to have unexcused tardies. Now, if the bus is late, it should be an excused tardy, not unexcused. I mean, if you went to class, it's because your bus was running late. That's an excused absence. That's an excused tardy. An excused absence is like a doctor's note, a medical excuse. That's an excused absence. So, what's going on here? Why was the bus late? And what does the school district have to say? Here's Brian Callahan.
An hour late, they stood out here on the side of a main street.
Courtney Marquez says the bus being late to take her daughter to Feist Middle School is frustrating enough. But the fact her daughter was in trouble for it made matters worse.
They're not showing up. The kids are getting late to school. They're getting unexcused tardies. It's not their fault.
Marquez says the bus on her daughter's route has been especially bad in the last week after school.
I've gone to get her twice, just in 4 days.
CCSD says late buses are not an ongoing issue at Feist Middle School, but acknowledged it does happen. Students are supposed to be given a slip excusing them for their tardies, but they say if there is a problem, parents should address it with the school. Marquez says she did that, but is worried the same thing could happen to other students.
There's other kids on the bus. 60 kids shouldn't have to do that. 60 parents shouldn't have to go to the office and correct it because they can't get to school on time.
The district says late buses are not a normal thing, but admits they have more than 100 unfilled bus driver positions, saying substitute drivers unfamiliar with routes occasionally lead to delays. Brian Callahan, 13 Action News.
So that's the reason why. So there needs to be an assistant bus driver helping them out with the route, or kids helping the bus driver out. Now, I may admit that could be good, but if you know the route, if you're on a bus and you know the route, you need to write it down. Here's the thing, if you know the route, you need to write it down on a piece of paper. That way, you know where to get to. We're about to get to that, but the bus driver knows. Sit in the front seat. That way the bus driver can hear you. Not far out in the back. Just have a piece of paper out in hand. Write down the student's name, what street they live on, and then using Google Maps or whatever map app you have, that can help you find out where it is. So that way your students won't be tardy ever again. Or late. Because that's the whole reason why these substitute bus drivers don't even know the route. That's why the students need to have, number one, students helping out, and number two, assistant bus drivers helping them out. Or an aide. That's just basically the whole reason. And there's a lot of cases about school bus incidents. If you remember back on the very first season, we focused in on school buses. We focused on a lot of school buses. Just imagine this. But there's one issue that we haven't had. Just imagine what happened. Your bus driver... The bus has an accident and then you let the children off. But it's what happened next. That would just leave any parent speechless.
Attorney Jeffrey Dashner. When you call my law firm, you get...
Take a look.
Witness News at 6 o'clock. We told you that more than 80% of the school buses used by New Orleans Public Schools have not met their inspection requirements. Eyewitness investigator David Hammer found out that one of those unexpected buses actually got into a crash this week. Now, thankfully, no one was hurt, but after the accident is when things got really scary for some 10 and 11-year-old kids. David has that story in his ongoing series, Taken for a Ride.
10-year-old Anthony Guichard knows accidents happen even when he's riding his school bus. Anthony's school bus and a gray car crashed at the corner of North Broad and Dabadie Monday evening. But it's what happened next that made it scary for Anthony. The driver had him and two other Mary McLeod Bethune Elementary students get off the bus, even though they were miles from their stops.
He got back on the bus and left.
And just left you here. Do you think he's supposed to do that?
No.
What do you think he's supposed to do?
Bring us back on the bus and take us home.
Anthony's mother, Lisa Guichard, was frantic when she learned her 10-year-old was on a busy street with strangers almost 3 miles from home.
I gave you my son. You said you was going to take care of him. He gets off the bus. You leave him.
Guichard called the school bus provider, BCH Services Group, and talked to owner Billy Hardrick Jr.
He said that it was ridiculous that he had left the scene. It was ridiculous that the kids were here by themselves. He said, I'm a parent. I would not have known what to do to think that my child is out there by themselves.
But when we called Hardrick, that's not what he told us. He said the driver never left the scene, just pulled around the corner onto Gonzaga Street to exchange information with the driver of the car. Cedric Snow came outside his house when he heard the crash and saw something different.
Put his right blinker on, and instead of pulling over to the next free space, which is on the corner of Broad and Gonzaga, we just took that right and then sped off.
Now let's take a look at what we can actually prove. Another neighbor, Morgan Clevenger, stood here and called 911. We can take a look at her cell phone to see what happened and when. Her phone shows the call to 911 was made at 5:35 p.m., and during the 4-minute call, she told the emergency dispatcher the bus was driving away.
Then we looked up and the bus took off.
NOPD seems to confirm that. This NOPD email says the responding officer arrived at 5:42, just 7 minutes after the 911 call. A police report shows neither vehicle was there when the officer arrived.
I guess they're waiting on the parents, but the cars are GOA.
Roy Cage owns a bus company that does work for BCH Services Group. It was his driver who was actually behind the wheel of the bus. Cage said he hurried to the scene after he heard about the accident and arrived at 6:05. That's a half hour after Clevenger's 911 call, and 23 minutes after the NOPD officer says the bus was gone. Cage insists the driver was still parked around the corner on Gonzaga when he got there. That doesn't make sense to Clevenger.
Even if the bus was around the corner, which we don't know because we were here with the kids, and the supervisor did show, when he did show up, why didn't he have the bus driver come back to the scene to talk to the police?
Bethune Charter School Operations Manager Armand Devizin said he accepts the bus company's claim that it always had a representative with the kids. So does New Orleans Public Schools Safety Officer Ulysses Collins.
And we have been in constant communication with the impacted school, NOPD, and the transportation company. And it's reported to us that the bus driver actually did not leave the scene until the owner of the company did arrive at the location.
Okay, so Mr. Cage got there before the driver left?
As reported to us.
But again, the police said there was no sign of the driver when they got there just 7 minutes after Clevenger's 911 call. Hardrick and Cage said they fired the driver, but only because they have a no-accident policy. That's not what shook up Anthony Guichard. Were you scared at all?
Yes.
Were you scared to be out here with people you didn't really know?
Yes.
David Hammer, Eyewitness News.
A photos taken after that accident show the bus uses a temporary license plate and has none of the required markings or city tags. So a city spokesperson confirmed that none of BCH's buses has been certified or inspected. Hardrick says he's working to get buses and drivers certified 3 weeks after BCH took over the school's routes from another bus company.
So in this case, who was telling the truth? I believe it was the victims here. The victims called 911. The victims said, all the victims in this case say that they saw the bus driver left. One person from the school says, no, he was at the scene. Remember. And who do I believe? I believe the victims and the student. The victims saw what was going on. The victims are the eyewitnesses. If you're a victim, if you are a victim, you witnessed everything. You have cell phone evidence, you have audio evidence, you have 911 recordings. You're an eyewitness, you can take them to court, and bam! They lose their case, and you win. That's basically the whole thing here. So next week, another Gimme Rec investigation. Not just about school buses. This time, it's about school bus inspections. Actually, we're going to do, all next week, it's a Gimme Rec investigation into school buses. That's just all about inspections. We're focusing on those viral videos. I'm going to give you a quick preview, and when we come back, what's happening to free speech in America. Stay with us. Here's a short preview of the investigation.
I know I didn't call you, but...
Alright, let me tell you kids something right now. Just because you're little kids right now, you think it's funny, it's called battering. You can be charged with a battery, just as simple, just as easy.
That's part of our investigation. So again, investigation into school buses from viral videos, and we're also going to rewatch. We're also going to rewatch these two clips, along with this one where a furious parent jumps on a school bus full of students, refuses to get off the bus because the bus driver says you can't get off the bus. That's exactly what happened. And we're going to save all those three for next week. So, yeah. But so here's a question for you. What's happening to free speech? You know, when you're in school, you can't say stuff to school. You can actually say that. So what's really happening here is that a lot of the times, still, you can't say that in the office, you can't say that in public, in a private place. It's all under the First Amendment. The First Amendment gives us the right to say whatever we want. It gives us the right to print out whatever we want in the newspaper. It gives us the right to just do whatever we want, even burn the flag. Can you ever imagine all these things? Today we're going to focus in on a lot of those issues as we ask the question, what's happening to free speech? Here's John Stossel.
To believe it's their job to stop dangerous speech or hateful speech. Sounds reasonable. Wouldn't that create a kinder, more civil society? But what really happens if you censor speech? And here's another problem. Who gets to decide which speech to stop?
You can't stop me from calling the white man the devil!
Khalid Mohammed's a racist who, in the last 2 years, has organized rallies in Harlem he calls the Million Youth March.
It wasn't a youth anything, it was a hate march.
New York's mayor, Rudy Giuliani, said they could not march because they're a violent hate group.
Oh, no good Giuliani is afraid of young black men and women hearing the message of black power.
Judges said the mayor had no right to stop the marches. One of 15 times the courts have overruled Giuliani. Mohammed's march went on, as did this rally by white racists. And when the mayor tried to stop this taxi protest, hundreds of cabbies just got out of their cars and marched into the city anyway.
Giuliani's a danger to America. He's trying to tamper with the American Constitution.
Giuliani wouldn't talk to us about this, but to give the mayor his due, the city's in great shape today. Crime's been cut in half, and the streets, where fewer people are screaming at us, are more pleasant. Most people like what Giuliani did, but some, like Robert Letterman, suggest it's not worth the cost.
Real quality of life is not about not being bothered. It's about civil liberties. It's about freedom of speech.
Letterman's a street artist who sells these pictures portraying Giuliani as Hitler, making New York into a police state. For doing this, says Letterman, he's been arrested dozens of times.
You're going to arrest me for what exactly?
Officials say he was arrested for things like disorderly conduct, not for his artwork. But Letterman claims the cops told him it was because of his speech.
While they're putting the handcuffs on me, they're saying, hey, you know, we're really sorry, Robert. We know you didn't do anything illegal, but that's our orders.
Police wouldn't even comment on that. Now, Giuliani attributes much of the improvement in quality of life in New York to his enforcing laws which had long been ignored. Laws against vagrancy, aggressive panhandling, against those squeegee men who wash your car windows whether you want them washed or not. Letterman and others argue that those activities are forms of free speech too, so Giuliani had no right to curtail them either.
You know, people are happy that people aren't stopping us on the street and saying, that's a fair change, fair change. We like that, and you're kind of like that. You're spreading your stuff around here.
Actually, I'm taking up about 2 inches of the sidewalk on my own car. But to answer what you're saying,
people like what Giuliani did.
People liked what Hitler did. Does that make it right? The only reason I'm being arrested is because of the content of my message.
The danger is that if government decides when people may speak, that can lead to tyranny.
If you're going to criticize elected officials, you need freedom of speech because they command the police, they influence the courts. They're in a position to stop you from criticizing them.
That's it. The police and the government have the guns and the power. That's why the Constitution says Congress shall make no law abridging speech. The founders thought guaranteeing us a right to talk back to the powerful was the best way to preserve our freedom. So what if you want to criticize not just a mayor, but the whole government? Is it all right to burn the American flag? Is this free speech?
These jerks who insist upon burning the flag.
We can't allow the U.S. flag to be set on fire, spit on.
Joint resolution proposing an amendment to the Constitution of the
3 times the House has voted to ban flag burning.
We are not limiting free speech, which is what the Bill of Rights talks about. We are limiting offensive conduct.
By 3 votes, the Senate rejected the amendment, but in others again under consideration. It would make demonstrations like this one a crime.
What is it that constitutes being a criminal? Is it the size of the flag? I have a little tiny flag here the size of a pea. I don't feel like a criminal yet. Maybe I need to burn a bigger one.
At this anarchist rally in Oregon, Libris Solar argues that we need to allow flag burning, to allow people to express disapproval of government.
Well, those were paper. Maybe it's a cloth flag. Maybe it's one that they consider real. Maybe if I burn that, I'll feel like a criminal. Don't ever give up the right to burn a flag in protest. It is your right.
Polls show this offends most Americans, but others argue that that's precisely the speech that needs protection.
The real test is whether you support the right of people who you think are absolutely disgusting to talk. Even really stupid and obnoxious stuff has to be protected under the First Amendment. That's the price of a free society.
Is it? And if we must put up with obnoxious political speech, what if the speech is less important?
4-letter words.
So what if that speech is very important? Coming up, we're going to meet a bartender who had this slur, this F word on, and people saying it should not be allowed, and people say it's your right. So, whose side do we pick? Stay with us. If you just joined us, we're asking the question, what's happening to free speech in America? Now, we're not going to get into all the debate about you have the right to say this and that. This is from a John Stossel report back in 99 or 2000, almost 20 years ago. But it raises the question, what's happening with free speech in America? Because let me tell you something, words can hurt. Words are bullets. We got to keep them apart. Socrates was sentenced to death for what he said. On YouTube, people have said that I'm like garbage. Out in the street, when I'm out playing guitar, people say that I'm ungrateful. This hurts my feelings. Do I have the right not to have my feelings hurt? Actually, no. We're about to take you to a bar. We're about to take you to a bar where this bartender had the F word on, and people who say that it's just a word, it's a noun, it's a verb, whatever. Here's John Stossel.
These people are offended by a movie, Dogma. It's about, well, it's complicated. Matt Damon and Ben Affleck are angels who threaten the world.
We were awaiting your arrival.
Chris Rock plays a 13th apostle.
I've never heard of a 13th apostle named Rufus.
George Carlin's a hustler priest.
Fill them pews, people!
This is blasphemous, say some Catholics.
We didn't fight the battlefields for this crap. We have to take this garbage?
You shouldn't have to take it.
We're not taking it. This is a hate crime.
This is a hate crime.
No question about it.
No jokes at all about religion.
It's too holy. Our faith is too holy. It's not a joke. It's our whole salvation.
Kevin Smith wrote and directed Dogma.
I'm a Catholic, and this movie doesn't insult me.
If I was president, I would pass a law where you couldn't blaspheme a religion.
If you institute that law, then politics goes away, comedy goes away, filmmaking goes away, TV goes away, newspapers go away, news shows like this one go away.
Oops, that's the problem. Where do you draw the line? And who gets to draw that line?
We can select people, all for all walks of life, all religions, all...
Like a jury?
Perhaps, yes.
We have religious groups who would know what is blasphemous or not, so
They would decide.
Yes.
But what happens if one group gets to decide what others watch or read? Well, classics like Ulysses and Canterbury Tales and Leaves of Grass were once banned in America. Recently, some schools banned Harry Potter books. That doesn't seem right. But then what can the poor people who really and truly are offended do?
They don't have to go. Nobody's saying they have to go.
That's the point. You don't have to watch. Of course, other parts of the culture are harder to avoid, like the words in music or on radio.
Now, we all know how the media view the Catholic Church.
The priest in Dogma, comedian George Carlin, used to wonder which words were too offensive.
And I wanted to know the ones that you could never say on television. I mean, the always filthy.
think of was mother.
We're going to be listening to filthy words.
A New York radio station played a record of him saying those words.
The word mother.
I'm muting this because I don't want to get copyrighted.
That so-called obscene language, and they warned everyone about it, said if you don't like this sort of thing, tune out.
One man in Florida, riding in his car with his 15-year-old son, didn't tune out. He complained to the government. Eventually, the Supreme Court banned Carlin's 7 words from all airwaves until after 10 p.m. Carlin says the censor should have been the driver of the car.
That's why they have a knob on the radio called off. And apparently they didn't turn it off immediately upon being offended. Listened to the whole thing, and apparently we're not morally corrupted by the whole program, simply offended.
We've added a few words since then.
And we don't want to offend you, so we bleep the words.
We've added.
We figure you can get the point without having to hear the specific words, but it's one thing when a private organization like ABC censors, another when government does it.
So far has suggested.
Because we have lots of TV channels. If one censors, ideas still get out. But we have only one government.
Without objection, it's so ordered.
When government says no, it's no for everyone.
You know, we've lost so many of our rights and freedoms in the last 25 to 30 years, all in the name of protecting society, and it's bogus.
It's just part of my language. I mean, you know, I've used it all my life.
Some people refuse to give in. 66-year-old Leonard Carlo, who owns this bar in Colorado Springs, likes the F word.
And this and that, I really don't give a.
And he has lots of signs at his bar saying things like,
No children, animals, tabs, or checks. And on the women's, it had women, and over there is the men's, and it had men.
He just likes the word. So do many of his customers.
It's a verb. It's a noun. It's everything you want it to be. You can make a sentence out of it.
But one person complained to the state agency that licenses Carlo's bar.
They got that one anonymous phone call, right? And they sent the Gestapo down without his swastika. You think like a stormtrooper, right?
The state removed signs that said were offensive to the senses.
The show is over, right?
Carlo was told he could not use profanity in his bar. Said the state, where alcohol served, profanity could lead to fights, and the state's responsible for public safety.
There's 700 other bars here, right?
I find it hard to believe they aren't swearing in the other bars, but too bad for Carlo. The law is the law.
A man's got to do what a man's got to do.
Determined to have at least one sign the government will have trouble removing, he went to a tattoo parlor and on his head tattooed the words,
You leave me the alone.
Of course, now this means Carlo could be forbidden to walk into his own bar.
I love my country and I hate the government. And I do not think that you or they or them or anybody else has got the right to tell me what I can read and write and say, right?
Well, clearly, if you're in jail, you lose some rights. Does that include your right to hurt people with your last words? Fred Trish and 180 other inmates on Ohio's death row have been told by prison officials that at their execution, they will not be allowed to say any last words.
Is it too much to let me say how I feel, say I'm sorry, or say a prayer? The court has shown great reluctance to
Kevin O'Neill, who teaches First Amendment law at Cleveland Marshall College of Law, is helping him sue for the right to speak his last words.
Humanity requires that when a person is about to be executed, they should be allowed to say goodbye.
Humanity? These people were not humane themselves.
That's true, but it's different when the government is doing the killing.
He points out there's a long tradition of allowing those sentenced to death to give a last statement. It's when Nathan Hale said, I regret I have but one life to give for my country.
I don't think we're asking that much.
Trish put a gun in the mouth of an unarmed security guard and pulled the trigger. He's scheduled to die in the electric chair. Trish argues that Ohio's denying him something even vigilantes granted those they were about to kill.
They asked him if he had anything to say. If they can give him the decency, why can't they give it to us?
Wrong, Ronnie.
Every movie you see on TV, they ask him if he wants a cigarette.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Got anything to say?
You have any last words? I ask your forgiveness for what I've done.
When you terminate my rights? When you kill me? When I'm dead?
Ohio banned last words after the trial of Richard Davis, who kidnapped and murdered this 12-year-old California girl, Polly Klaas.
We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of a felony Murder.
With the little girl's parents in the courtroom, Davis sometimes turned and made obscene gestures. Then, in his statement to the court, he claimed that before he killed the girl, she told him,
Just don't do me like my dad. I have to pay my dues, so should you.
There was no evidence that Polly was ever molested by her father. Davis's words only inflicted more grief on the family. Even though they weren't Davis's last words, it's the kind of vengeful outburst Ohio prison officials say they want to prevent.
If I really want to talk bad to them, all they have to do is sit there and listen for a few minutes, and they're going to watch me die.
The condemned are allowed to write last words well before their execution, just not to say them. But Ohio officials still haven't explained how they intend to prevent Trish and others from saying anything as they wait to be killed.
Don't you think he can still hear me? Do you really think unless they cut our vocal cords?
So is that constitutional or unconstitutional? Allowing prison officials to say their last words. I believe it's unconstitutional. Every prisoner in every state should have the right to say their last words. Like, I'm sorry for... I don't even know why I'm joking around with this. This is not something to laugh at, but this is from... You ever watch South Park, Bigger, Longer, Uncut? Don't you... Every adult has the right to watch that movie. And if you have children around you, you have the right to turn it off or just show it to them. We all have rights. And an example of last words. Any last words? They're like, that's a boot. That's a boot. Let me the heck out of this chair. Now, that's just an example, but let's see what John Stelzl has coming up.
We're getting into extreme cases where no one has good answers. Let's move back to everyday life. When we return, censorship at work. What's okay to say about sex?
So yeah, the question is it okay to say something sexual at the office? What is okay to say at the office? When we come back, we're going to help you explain what you can and can't say at work. Stay with us. Before we move forward with You Can't Say That, here's a Give Me a Break classic. Our classic was all about truancy, where we focused on unexcused absences. We may focus on that. We focused on parents who got arrested. We focused on kids who went to juvie for their absences, for truancy. And a Give Me a Break USA Today exclusive, students get criminal records for those unexcused absences. It's truancy, but the same thing. Take a look.
She hardly looks the part. A middle schooler taking all pre-AP classes, Ava Rodriguez admits even she was surprised.
It's not what I had originally thought I'd be doing at any point or time in my life, let alone at 13.
Surprised when her school labeled her a truant.
I was, taking care of medical issues, taking care of family issues, and because of that, I have a criminal record.
It started last school year. Rodriguez missed 6 days of classes because of a medical issue. But instead of sending the doctor's notes to the office, Rodriguez says her mother sent them to the teen's teacher by mistake. Her mother was later diagnosed with dementia. 4 more days out of school to help care for her mom meant this teen was automatically sent to court.
They're just casting such a broad net that even people who aren't truant, who might have extenuating circumstances, get trapped in it.
And Rodriguez isn't alone. In the last 2 years, more than 210,000 failure to attend school cases have been filed against students in Texas. More than 50,000 of them right here in the Houston area. Students criminally charged in adult courts.
Well, I think they all want to be in school. There's just various issues that have prohibited them from doing so.
Judge Kenneth Kanata hears about 700 truancy cases a year. He estimates only 10% are kids skipping school for no good reason.
You may have a 14-year-old who has to stay home and watch his younger brothers and sisters while mom and dad go to work because they can't afford daycare.
Should that kid have a criminal history because of that?
I would say probably not. If that case were in my court, they wouldn't have a criminal history.
But he admits not every judge sees it that way, and that worries the advocacy group Texas Appleseed.
Schools should be using court as a very last resort rather than a first resort as they are doing now.
In a new report, the group found 80% of students cited for truancy are low income, and that Black and Hispanic students make up a majority of the prosecutions. The group is calling on state lawmakers to end what it calls a one-size-fits-all policy, a law that landed Rodriguez 2 months of probation, a fine, and community service. It also gave this 8th grader a new view of Texas's truancy law.
I used to think maybe, well, it's a good law, you miss school, go to court, get straightened out, but after being through it, it really does nothing besides waste your time.
Now, this was posted 7 years ago. This was posted months before the new law was put in place. Now, in her case, if this was during that new law this was proposed, then you wouldn't put students in jail. If students continue, then she would go before the juvenile probation department, but the juvenile probation will institute new orders. That's our next Thursday. So, FMBS when we return. Stay with us. Earlier in the show, we focused in on students not allowed to use the bathroom. So what if you had to pay to go to the bathroom? It's a subject that James Wolf discussed in his BS episode, and it's also the subject of a few minutes of BS.
You know what's bullshit? Public toilets that you have to pay to use. That's not fair. If I gotta go, it doesn't matter if I have a quarter. I still gotta go. It's not like it's a matter of choice, like it's admission to a fucking show. Then there's times when there's somebody standing in the bathroom handing you paper towels. Like, what the fuck? Whoever came up with the idea of taking money off you taking a shit is fucking bullshit. Now, let's face it. Unless you stay home, public toilets are mandatory because in humanity's growing effort to become civilized, proper facilities need to be present to release feces. But once we have to start paying for our own bodily functions, I say go back to the wild. They want to make a business out of us having to do our business? Man, fuck that. That business is between you and nature. I say go out on the grass and take a shit like that cow. But wait, that's not cow shit. That's bullshit.
Go out in the grass and take a crap like that cow. I'll be right back. We're now out of time for this first half. Come up in the second half, more of You Can't Say That, what's happening to free speech. Plus more about those school buses. I was going to say we're going to do that for next week, but there's probably more to come about this, so we're going to save that for the second half of the show. And going back to You Can't Say That, what is it okay to say and cannot say in the workplace? All that's coming up in our second half. So for the meantime, that's it for the first half of the show. I'll see you again soon for the second half of the show. For all of us here, give me a break on YouTube. Have a good day.